Hey everyone, quick announcement before we begin. The banning of Felidar Guardian was announced right in the middle of our recording. We have only a limited amount of time to record each week, so you'll still hear references to the deck until about halfway through this episode. We will have a full discussion about the banning next week when we can prepare for it, but for now, enjoy. Welcome to the Wizards Brew podcast. I'm Carl Jalm.
And I'm Dan Ice.
So last week we realized was a little bit of a downer of an episode. You know, we were talking about cards that aren't good, cards that are just generally bad. But this week we have a bit more of an optimistic episode for you. We're going to be talking about the hidden gems of Amonkhet. These are cards that, for those of you who may not be as experienced in deck building, are cards that you may have missed, and the roles they can have in different sorts of decks, this standard rotation.
I mean, a lot of these cards are kind of like, they're pretty much there. Like, everybody sees them. It's just that people are, like, overshadowed by the ban list that hasn't happened, and the fact that the Glorybringer is, like, insanely powerful, and, you know, stuff. So, like, these cards that you're going to look at, you're going to look at them and go, really? You think that's that good? It's like, well, I mean, in the right scenarios, in the right metas, they're going to be really amazing.
Yeah, not all of these are going to be great in wherever the meta goes, but these all lead to possibilities depending on, you know, whether the meta goes left or it goes right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just to make sure everyone is aware, we do know about, you know, the huge ban list change to Legacy. You'll get to hear our thoughts on that little shake-up next week.
Yeah, we're going to make sure that we get all our ducks in a row and explain what's really going on between Legacy, Vintage, how Modern Standard is going to look, things like that. We're really going to go more in depth than just being like, haha, screw the Miracles player.
Yep. So first up, for our cards from Amonkhet, we're going to talk about Bloodlust Inciter. So this guy, very simple card. It's a single red mana for a 1/1 human warrior, and you can tap him to give target creature haste until end of turn. So this is an interesting card. There's a deck that's been being tossed around for the past week or so. It's kind of a red-green monsters deck. You're playing just really big, cheap creatures in red and green and beating your opponent in the face. So Bloodlust Inciter allows you to do a very, very powerful series of turns where you can play turn 1 Bloodlust Inciter, turn 2 you play Bloodrage Brawler, the 4/3 for 2 mana, tap your Inciter, give your Brawler haste, attack for 4, and then turn 3 you play the Green God Ronus, give him haste, and you can attack for 9 on turn 3. Just, that is very fast right there.
Yeah, it's a lot of aggression. I mean, it's a 1 mana 1/1, so it fits really early into the green-red aggressive style deck that you were just saying. And the fact that it's just like on turn 2, give your 2-drop haste, like that's pretty good. Like it's fine.
Yeah, as far as aggressive decks go, this guy is very similar to a Llanowar Elves for aggressive decks, because Llanowar Elves, tap him to add a mana, so that accelerates you by a turn in most situations. Bloodlust Inciter is also kind of accelerating you by a turn. You know, give anything that dropped on the board that turn haste. That's pretty huge for a deck that wants to just beat you down by turn 5 or 6.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfectly fine. It's really not that bad. It could be awkward late game, but I mean, this is probably one of the first cards you cut from your main board to your sideboard, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, like, never be afraid to play something as a 4-of and then side them all out for game 2. Never be afraid to do that if it can allow you to have explosive starts.
Exactly.
So next up, we do have Bounty of the Luxa. It's a really cool enchantment. It's 2, a green, and a blue. And it says, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, remove all flood counters from Bounty of the Luxa. If no counters were removed this way, put a flood counter on Bounty of the Luxa and draw a card. Otherwise, add 1, a green, and a blue to your mana pool. So basically, you play this, The turn after you've played it, you draw a card. The turn after that, you get 3 mana, and it alternates between the two.
Yeah, so it ticks up and down, basically like basically a flood that would go through the like Egyptians like cane supply and stuff like that. Like that kind of like style. I know that's like old school and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but the water floods in and then goes away, and it comes just as fast as it goes. So every turn it's alternating. So you generate a bunch of mana, or you receive the bounty of drawing a card.
Yeah, it's a very, very flavorful card, but this also fits very well into ramp strategies.
Yes.
One of the downsides of playing a ramp deck is just not drawing into your threats. This, you're drawing, on average, half a card extra per turn, and you're generating, on average, 1.5 mana extra per turn. So it's going to draw you deeper through your deck, and it's going to allow you to ramp into those targets if, let's say, some of your mana dorks get dealt with.
Yeah. This card is really good with like Nissa, the new Nissa. It's also probably going to be really good in some blue-green, maybe a Bant control list, because being able to generate additional mana on one turn, especially in the early games after turn 4 into like turn 6, like that kind of range, having that additional mana really helps push out late game threats in the middle of the game, which is a big deal.
Yeah, if it's possible to be playing some sort of tap-out control deck, you'd probably want to play Bant or Sultai with this card, because it's just going to net a whole lot of value. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this in ramp decks, because we have a lot of mana dorks that cost 2 mana, which would allow you to drop this on turn 3. And that's incredibly powerful right there.
I also like the fact that I'm able to draw additional cards. Like, more card draw in standard, please.
Yeah, card draw is always great to see. Next card that we have, we've actually been seeing a lot of decks being brewed around this recently. This is Drake Haven, limited all-star. Danny, if you want to read it, go for it.
Drake Haven is blue and a 2 enchantment. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 2/2 blue Drake token with flying. So the value that you could squeeze out of this card is pretty dang good, especially alongside of the fact that there's a lot of discard spells in standard right now, plus the fact that there's a lot of cycling cards right now that are really playable for standard. Like, this card could make a control deck like really, really, really powerful. It also could fall flat on its face because there may not be enough support that could come from it.
Yes, that's very true. I do think that this will find its home in a control deck, definitely. It's a great finisher for control, because you're going to win the game by drawing cards. Like, what control player does not want to win that way? I don't really know.
Yeah, exactly, because you spend 3 mana. Basically what happens is you start spending 3 mana to draw a card and make a 2/2. Mm-hmm. Now, that's where people start to draw the line. It's like, well, is it really worth to have a 2/2 for 3 mana that draws a card? But you have to discard a card in order to do it. That's where it gets weird. And obviously there are other cards that say like, oh, cycle for 1 mana or do this for no mana, whatever it is. Those are few and far between to make it enough. Like, and even then, the ones that you're going to be using in a blue-white X control deck, like you're going to be playing black and white and blue. You're going to be playing an Esper style deck. Well, you really don't want to cycle Feast of Scarabs, and you do not want to cycle Cast Out. So what happens in blue? Well, Mill 5? Like, you don't play that. So you start cycling your land that's missing a land drop. Like, that's where the things get weird. This card could be really, really powerful with the next set coming out.
Yeah, we do have to wait and see what sort of cyclers we get out of Hour of Devastation. I think this deck is possible with what we have now, but a lot of times you're not going to be making a massive army of Drakes. You're going to be making 2 or 3 Drakes at most and just hitting with those every so often while keeping your opponent at bay. I think that's how the deck is going to play out. But yeah, playing a 2 or 3 mana 2/2 flyer with flash that draws a card sounds really good, and you turn every card with cycling into those. Very excited to see where this card goes.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really sweet to see what happens with it. I'm excited to see it. I hope it does well, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now, next we have a really cool deck. Sorry. Next, we have a card for the zombie decks. This is Dread Wanderer. It's a single black for a 2/1 zombie jackal. It enters the battlefield tapped. So we do have a piker that, can't block right away, but that's fine. You're trying to be aggressive with these 1-mana 2/1s. Then it has 2 and a black. Return Dread Wanderer from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery, and only if you have 1 or fewer cards in hand.
This screams black-white or black-blue zombie aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this card is very, very powerful when you're able to make it work.
Yeah.
The thing is if you're flooding out in lands, that's when it becomes a hard time.
Yeah. Now, 1-mana 2/1s, colloquially known as pikers. These are very strong aggressive cards. They'll trade off with a lot of things that your opponents play early, and having a piker that you can buy back is really strong. Not only that, if you look at the other cards that'll be played in zombie decks, if you're playing like a black-white zombies deck, you're probably playing the black 1 white 2/2 that whenever a zombie enters you drain for 1. This guy gets you that trigger again. If you're playing blue-black zombies or Grixis zombies, you're going to have prized amalgams that are going to come back when this guy comes out. And he's very similar to Scrap Heap Scrounger. His ability costs 1 more, but you don't have to exile a creature from your graveyard to bring him back. The only restriction is having very few cards in your hand, which, if you're dumping your handful of zombies anyways, that's going to happen pretty often.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. It could really, really do well. Or it could be really good in like some maybe like mid-rangey, attrition-based, like, black X deck. Maybe like black-red attrition-based deck or something like that. But it's sadly not a Gravecrawler. But for what it is, this Gravecrawler isn't that bad.
Yeah, it is not very bad at, just being a recurable threat that's just, I'm going to hit you for 2. You're just doing that every so often. That can sometimes win games.
Exactly. And it's also technically like every other turn a chump blocker too. So you could, if you got 2 in the graveyard, you could alternate them where you get 1 stays on the battlefield untapped, bring the other one back tapped, untap, you get 1 untapped, bring it back. Like, you alternate the 2, or you can do both at the same time. It doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. But you could do that sort of loop effect where you've got that going on, which is pretty decent. Like, having those kind of chump blockers can save you in the long game.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
It may be harder, of course, but, for what it is, for a 1-mana 2/1, it's fine.
Yep. Now, next up, we have Gideon's Intervention. This one's a bit of an oddball. It's an enchantment for 2 white. As Gideon's Intervention enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Your opponents can't cast spells with the chosen name. And prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and permanents you control by sources with the chosen name.
Oh boy. This card could be a complete and utter blowout, depending on the right deck.
Yes.
This deck it wants to go into is going to be looking for... this is a sideboard card, 100%. For, like, Temur Tower. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, this card is very interesting. It's a lot like Nevermore and Ruined Halo had a baby, and that baby's grown up to be bigger than them, because it's 4 mana. So, like you said, very, very good against Temur Tower. Biggest reasons why. It dodges Natural State. Natural State only destroys 3 CMC or less. So this gets around that. And
Fragmentize?
It does die to Fragmentize, but if we're talking about Temur Tower doesn't play Fragmentize typically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great way to deal with Dynavolt Tower. You just, slap it on board, name Dynavolt Tower. Now your opponent's main win condition is gone. They have to try and kill you with the alternate kills with, maybe Torrential Gearhulk Beatdown or something. And this is borderline playable against the Saheeli Rai combo. Now, the Saheeli Rai combo decks, they do play Fragmentize a lot of lists, so they can get rid of this. But it does force your opponent to have Fragmentize before they can kill you with the Felidar Guardian combo, because you just slam this, name Felidar Guardian, what are they going to do?
Right, they really can't do anything. If they don't have it, it's game over.
Yep. Now, next we have a card. This one, I know, Danny, you are extremely excited about trying out. This is Glorious End. Go ahead and read it.
Glorious End. This card, I want to break it. I want to break it in two. It's 2 mana and red, instant, end the turn. At the beginning of your end step, you lose the game. This has nowhere to play in Standard. But in Modern or Legacy, this is a card that I can get behind. This is a card I want to play. It's called Ad Nauseam. And I think this can fit right in there, about maybe as a 2 of.
Yeah, this could be very interesting in Ad Nauseam. Now, when you end the turn, it has the reminder text on there, thankfully, for newer players. Specifically what happens, it says, exile all spells and abilities on the stack, including this card. The player whose turn it is discards down to his or her maximum hand size, damage wears off, and this turn and until end of turn effects end. So basically you skip everything and go straight to the cleanup step. You know, anything that's on the stack that's going to resolve, it's all gone. You're in the middle of combat, forget it. You're no longer in combat. So it's a great way to dodge your opponent winning the game. But then the second clause, you have to win on your next turn unless you have anything that says that you don't lose the game, such as Gideon of the Trials or Angel's Grace in the modern Ad Nauseam lists.
Or Platinum Angel.
Or a Platinum Angel, that's another way to do it. This is a very, very fun card. I agree. I don't think it'll see us play in Standard. Doesn't mean we can't play around with it. This is a great way to blow out cat combo. You know, you've got a strong board state, and your opponent goes Felidar Guardian, Saheeli, make a bunch of tokens, and you just go in response, Glorious End, my turn.
It might work.
Yeah.
It might just get there.
It might just get there. Very strong card that it does require a lot of building around. You have to have your deck very much able to synergize with this card. You can't just slam it into any deck that's playing red.
Yeah, you really have to build with this card. I mean, there could be like this Jeskai control deck maybe that I keep talking about that could run like 1 or 2 of these because they don't want to deal with the cat combo, and they're not running the cat combo themselves because they don't want to run it. Because it just, actually, the cat combo kind of just sucks. Like, it's nice to have an oops, I win button, but at the end of the day, like, some people don't want to play it.
Yeah, it does eat up a lot of deck slots. That is one thing that's very true. But it is a possible instant win button. So, it's going to be hard to see decks not running, like, decks in those colors not running cat combo. But it is always possible. We've seen, in the past, when Splinter Twin was Modern Legal, we saw decent Grixis control or Jeskai control decks winning that weren't running the Splinter Twin combo.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't run it. Like, or people just run like 1 Saheeli and 1 cat maybe. Like maybe you do 1 and 1, just be like, oops, I win.
Now next up we have, we're going to skip a whole bunch of letters. We don't really have a lot of things in between Glorious End and this card that we feel need to be talked about. This is Shefet Monitor. So this guy is 5 and a green for a 6/5 lizard, and he has cycling 3 and a green. So when you cycle Shefet Monitor, you may search your library for a basic land card or a desert card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So 4 mana, ramp a land, draw a card. But the relevant part of this is when you cycle Shefet Monitor, you're supposed to grab Sun-Scorched Desert, because this will let you counter the Saheeli combo. Sun-Scorched Desert, when it enters, deals 1 damage to target player.
Basically what's going on at this point is you are going off at instant speed that can't be responded to. So if you're a green deck and you don't want to deal with the Saheeli combo, you put like maybe 2 deserts in your deck, and you run maybe like 2 or 3 of these monitors, and they're like, okay, start making infinite casts. And you go, all right, well, in response to the first one, I'm going to cycle this, get my Sun-Scorched Desert, target you, redirect to Saheeli.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's going to happen is they're going to get another cat, but that's it. That's all they're going to get.
Yep. So it's a very clean way to deal with the Saheeli combo. Now, technically, they can respond to it if they have a disallow, but they basically have to have disallow and have to have open mana for it to stop this from happening, because you can disallow the trigger that comes off the cycling.
Yes, which will make you very sad. Or,
yeah.
I mean, some players might let it respawn and be like, oh, I didn't know what you were getting, so I guess I'll just disallow the Sunscorched Desert. And then, I mean, you ramp to land, but now you're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in matchups where you don't need the desert, or if you draw this guy late, I mean, he's just a 6/5. He's like not a bad guy on the ground, but he's not really being played for his body. He's being played for his ability to fetch up Sunscorched Desert.
Yeah, I mean, this is a rampant growth for 4 mana. So, I mean, it's not the best thing in the world. He's no Crosian Tusker, but, it is what it is.
Now, the next card that we have, this is going to be an interesting one for sideboards. May potentially see mainboard play, depending on how relevant Mardu Vehicles is. This is Stinging Shot. It's a single green for an instant. Put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature with flying, and it has cycling 2.
Card's really good, honestly. Speaking of flying creatures, that Delver card gets killed by this for 1 mana. So they push your creature, they play the Bone Picker, and then you're just like, oh, Stinging Shot, kill your dude.
Yep, I've done that. I did that many a time during the pre-release. Someone did Bone Picker, and I'm like, nope, my turn.
Yeah, exactly. And the card's just fine in the sideboard too. If there's a relevant, if there's a relevant creature flyer deck, I don't know if there will be or not, because flying is kind of like one of the keywords that is overpriced when it comes to creatures. But if there is one, this card was forever in sideboards now, which is great. We also have Plummet still, but this card is fine.
Yeah, I like this card a bit more because you can cycle it in the times where you don't need it. And against Mardu Vehicles, notable things that hits. Of course, Heart of Kirin, which this will turn it into a 1/1. That's not really a threat you care about anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we have Ethersphere Harvester, which is seeing play in some Mardu Vehicles builds. That becomes a 0/2. Doesn't even gain them life anymore. It's just a chump blocker. You turn it into an Ornithopter at that point. It's pretty funny right there.
And it's like unplayable too. Like you do nothing to it. You can't do anything with it.
Then you can also kill Drake tokens off of Drakehaven, which I don't think will happen very much, but in some board states it'll be relevant. Yep. And if Kefnet the Mindful sees any play, you turn him into a 2/2, which is not bad either.
Pretty good. I mean, then you just hit him again, he's dead.
Yeah. And the thing is, cycling really does make any card better. I mean, this card, if it didn't have cycling, it might even still see sideboard play sometimes, just because, you just go, 1 mana, deal with your dude.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think people would still be playing Plummet over this, but this would be a 1 mana option. But with cycling, I fully expect us to see play if we see decks with green in them seeing play.
Yeah, this card's good. I like it a lot. I hope to see it in some sideboards. I hope it does well this weekend.
Now, the last card we want to talk about, this is Weaver of Currents. And this is a very exciting card. This is a green and a blue for a 2/2 Naga Druid. God, why did it have to be Naga?
Because screw your snakes.
Why do they keep doing Nagas? I just want to play blue-green snake tribal. But he can tap to add 2 colorless to your mana pool.
Card's fine. Like, it turns your turn 4 into turn 6. Like, that's good. I like it a lot.
Yeah, he's really great. I mean, this guy, he generates 2 mana, and we have seen how much play Hedron Archive, we have seen how much play that card has seen recently, and this guy comes down a turn earlier. Yes, he's vulnerable to removal spells, but so are all the other mana dorks we've been playing, and this guy is just, he's really powerful. If you are one of the unluckiest ramp players on turn 4, you still have 5 mana. You played this guy on turn 3, and then you proceed to miss your land drop. 5 mana still gets you a lot of relevant cards depending on what you have out. You can cast Confirm Suspicions, counter a spell, get 3 clues. That's great. You can cast a Nissa Vital Force. You can cast a Sky Sovereign, a Get Rock Monster, a Glory Bringer. Like, those are all great 5-mana cards right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with this card. It's not, like, the reason why people still use Hedron Archive or everything else, it's because you draw a card.
Yep, you can convert it into cards when you're getting into that late part of the game where, you know, you don't need the mana as much anymore. You have all the mana you need. Now you just need to find the stuff to use that mana on.
Yeah, exactly. So this just in, I think we should try to keep this running. Announcement to April 24th, 2017 ban restriction announcement.
Oh.
Eldahar Guardian is banned. Effective the 28th of April.
Whoa, what?
Yes.
This just happened in the middle of us recording.
Yes, this just in.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great news. That means Standard is something I'll look into playing.
Oh.
So I wish you heard it here first, but if you didn't hear it, we got you back.
Yeah, you've probably heard it already by now, but this is honestly brand new to us. Just got posted on Reddit 7 minutes ago as I'm talking right now. This is crazy. This changes so much right now about Standard. But we're going to continue with what we have written. I want to make sure this episode gets out there on time. We can go more in depth on this news at a later date. Oh my god, this changes so much. Okay. So after Weaver of Currents, we don't really have many other cards. We don't really have many other cards in Amonkhet that we feel need to be talked about. But we do have 2 brews for you again this week, and these are both standard decks. And these are going to use a few of the cards that we have mentioned in this episode so far.
Yeah, these lists are actually pretty interesting for like week 1 standard right before the game comes out. Like, this is, of course, it can be optimized a lot.
Yeah.
But for now, what it is, these are really sweet decks.
Yep. So first up, we have a Teamer ramp deck. I did say in an earlier episode that I have been working on this deck. I have it to a point that I'm comfortable with showing it off. I still don't feel that it's finished, but the ideas are definitely here. So this is using, as your 2 mana dorks, you have some Servant of the Conduits, some Channeler Initiates. You are playing Weaver of Currents and Hedron Archives as your 2 mana options. We got Oath of Nissas for the early game, search out, just find the next thing that you need. It allows you to keep hands with less lands, because this deck is only playing 20 lands, but it has plenty of ways to generate mana outside of those lands.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've been gold fishing with it, and I've found like 1 or 2 times where I keep a 2 or 3 lander and then I end up just whiffing entirely, but that doesn't happen very often. Now, as far as your ramp targets, we do have a couple of Elder Deep Fiends. These are going to be good to help stall during the mid game. Kind of keep yourself alive while setting up for the big payoff cards. We've got 2 Chandra Flamecallers, which I think Chandra Flamecaller is still just a really great card. She offers a lot of beatdown potential. We've got 4 Nissa Steward of Elements. Once you get to 8 mana, you just Nissa basically reads 2 of your lands become 5/5 flying haste so deal 10. It's just like boom, 8 mana, deal 10.
Yeah.
Then we have 4 Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger, kind of the ramp target for a lot of decks right now. And then 2 Kozilek the Great Distortion. This is mostly because I kind of wanted a quasi 5th and 6th Ulamog. Kozilek's kind of close. This deck does end up very low on cards very quickly, so he's going to draw you back up. You can protect yourself a little bit with his ability to discard cards to counter spells, and then the next turn you could probably cast Ulamog because you probably drew him off of Kozilek.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Yep. Now the sideboard is very loose right now. Before we move on to the sideboard, I forgot to mention this deck is also playing Walking Ballista, just because that is such a great card, very powerful. Yeah, it's just good.
Yeah, it's Walking Bliss is insane though. Like seriously, that card is so good.
Yeah, especially in a ramp deck, it's just disgusting. But as far as the sideboard goes, we've got 3 copies of Brutal Expulsion. Brutal Expulsion, really good to help protect yourself. This was originally in there to deal with Saheeli Rai, but since we may not have to worry about cat combo anymore, not necessarily as important, may not end up in the final list. We've got 2 copies of Heaven to Earth. These are going to be very good against any creature-based decks like Black-Green or any sort of zombies decks. It's going to help out against, it's a nice little board wipe there. We got 3 copies of Natural State. That's to deal with any problem artifacts or enchantments like Dynavolt Towers. We've got some Chefette Monitors and Sunscorched Deserts. Again, those were meant for the Saheeli Cat combo, which no longer really applies. These will probably get changed into some other set of 5 cards. And my favorite, 2 copies of Sandworm Convergence. This card's in the sideboard. It's designed to work against Mardu vehicles because creatures with flying can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. They're Heart of Kirans and their Ethersphere Harvesters, completely useless. And then at the beginning of your end step, you create a 5/5 worm. That just, it dies to blocking Gideon, but other than that, it blocks everything in their deck.
Yeah, it does pretty good work. It's just a sweet little deck. It really is.
Yeah, this is definitely this is the one that I've had a lot of fun just playing around with, goldfishing it, trying to figure, working on the numbers exactly. The lands is one of the interesting things to try and work around, trying to figure out how many cycling lands can I afford to play. I settled on 3. It may not be the correct number, but I settled on that much. We've got 1 Wandering Fumarole that provides you with another win condition against some decks. Very good after you cast Heaven to Earth. You wipe the board, and then you've just got a 4/1. That's really
pretty
good.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a very fun deck to play around with. Very interested to see if a deck like this sees play. Honestly, I don't think this exact 60 card main deck will see play at all, but it's a good starting point if you're interested in ramp decks to look at and kind of, search around for ideas. I kind of implemented a lot of different elements of ramp and a lot of different possible win conditions into this deck. So, just take a look and see what you like.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of room to grow with this deck, but there are really cool cards to put into this deck. I mean, I'm sorry, I must have missed a card. I was gonna say, is it Glorybringer in here?
I don't have Glorybringer in this list, and that's one of the things that I think will definitely be on the final list. Now that I can open up some sideboard slots that were reserved for the Saheeli Cat combo. So
yeah, I mean, Glorybringer's super sweet.
Oh yeah,
and being able to ramp him out like turn 4, like maybe even I guess turn 4 is the fastest you probably could do.
Yeah,
but I mean that's still good. That's really good.
Oh yeah, that's going to be very strong getting him out that early. Yeah, definitely looking forward to trying out different win conditions, maybe even switching out the red in some versions, because the red is really only there for Chandra Flamecaller and sideboard cards. So you could easily make this just blue-green ramp. You could go blue-green-black ramp and play Archfiend of Ifnir and more cyclers to deal with wide boards. You could play blue-green-white and play cast-outs, play Linvala the Preserver against some decks. There's a lot of different options you can do with this. The red is the splash here, so there's a lot you can do here with this base.
Yep, it's very exciting.
Now the next deck we have, I cannot take full credit for this deck. I saw this deck on Twitter. There's a shop in Japan called Haruruya. I always have trouble pronouncing that. It's a play on words, kind of like hallelujah, whatever. And every
Asian jokes.
Yay. Every new set they release a list. They release a whole bunch of just very basic deck lists that give you an idea of some stuff that is possible with the new cards. They're always really far out there, very crazy deck lists, and usually very unpolished, so they have a lot of room to grow. I don't believe any of the lists that they've put up have been, the full 75 correct for that sort of deck, but they've always been very close to a lot of the top contenders in Standard with every set.
Mm-hmm.
Now this deck, this is a Standard combo deck, and now that Cat Combo is out of the way, maybe it's this deck's time to shine. This is New Perspectives Combo, otherwise known as like the cycling combo deck. So how this deck works, you have New Perspectives, 5 into blue enchantment. When it enters, you draw 3 cards, and as long as you have 7 or more cards in hand, you may pay 0 rather than pay cycling costs. So the deck plays 39 cards with cycling in the main deck.
It's a lot of cards.
It's a lot of cards, and they're all very good cards. You've got Censors, you've got Cast Outs, Haze of Pollen. You've got a bunch of cycling lands, which gives you actually a lot of different colors. But what makes this deck go off is that you play Shefet Monitors and Vizier of Tumbling Sands. So Vizier of Tumbling Sands, 2 into blue for a 1/3 human cleric. You can tap it to untap another target permanent, and it has cycling for 1 into blue, and when you cycle it, you untap target permanent. So what happens is you have New Perspectives on board, you start cycling Shefet Monitors, and you draw lands out of your deck and put them on the battlefield. You cycle away a Vizier of Tumbling Sands, you untap one of your lands. So you have 8 cards in your deck that when they cycle, gain you 1 mana. Yep. Then we have a few copies of Shadow of the Grave. 1 in a black for an instant, return to your hand all cards in your graveyard that you cycled or discarded this turn. So you just cycle for 0 until you've generated some mana, you've drawn up to a Shadow of the Grave, cast Shadow of the Grave, go again, and you keep going until you find your kill. Now, there's a lot of different kill conditions you can use for this. The list that came from Haruruya is the one that I'm using here, which is where you play 1 copy of Noose Constrictor and 1 copy of Fling. So you play the Noose Constrictor, you dump your entire hand to him, and then you fling him at your opponent.
Love it. It's great.
Yep. Now, you can also run Drakehaven as a win condition. That does require you to net more mana to keep making drakes, because you still have to pay that 1 for the trigger every time. You've also got Faith of the Devoted, 2 in a black enchantment. Whenever you cycle or discard, you may pay 1. If you do, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. So that's a way to go off at instant speed, kill them immediately. It's just a very fun looking deck. Now I did make a few changes to the Haruruya list. I cut down on one. I don't remember if they had three or 4 copies of Shadow of the Grave, but I have only 3 of them. I added in a couple of copies of Curator of Mysteries. That's the 4 mana 4/4 flyer. When you cycle or discard another card, scry 1 with cycling for a blue. So that's kind of a nice mid-rangey threat that you can just drop onto the board. Just to pressure your opponent, keep them from, doing too much to you. He's a fairly decent blocker with that 4 toughness, so, makes a pretty good guy. We've got some copies of Commit to Memory, really good if you happen to whiff during the combo. As long as you can generate the mana, you can cast Memory with Aftermath and kind of reset. And with the 39 cyclers and your lands and the New Perspectives out already, it's very likely you're going to have enough cyclers in that hand to keep going. We've got Haze of Pollens, just prevent damage, and I built a sideboard for it with Dispels to deal with control decks, Dissenter's Deliverance to deal with vehicles, Forsake the Worldly to deal with vehicles and anyone playing Cast Out, a Negate, and then we had some Sunscorched Deserts for Cat Combo, and then some Sweltering Suns for the aggro decks.
But, we don't have to worry about Cat Combo anymore.
Yes. Oh my god. I
just can't help but kind of give the rub-ins.
God.
There's a little bit of salt
I did so much with these decks to prepare them for standard with cat combo, and now like having to.
See, this is what's great about Magic sometimes. If this was done, on Monday, everything would be okay. It's done today. You can't do anything about it. But this opens up deck building. Now there's actually going to be a good Jeskai control deck, yo. And that's what's going to keep me in standard. That's what's going to make me want to play it. Like, there could be a good Esper list. There could be a Grixis list. There's going to be a good control deck, finally.
Yes, I'm excited for that so much.
Yeah, that's what's great. That standard needed this, but I'm going to digress my tangent because we're going off topic. The deck that is the new perspective combo deck is supers. Like, sure, it dies a fatal push. That doesn't stop everything.
At least the Noose Constrictor win condition dies to fatal push. But
yeah, there are other win conditions.
Yeah, like I said, we've got Drakehaven and Faith of the Devoted as alternate win conditions. You could also just, use this to generate a very large amount of mana and like do some fireball effect. I don't know. I need to look up if there's a good fireball effect in standard other than cut to ribbons. But
which is still pretty good. It's not good enough, but it's good.
Yeah, it's still pretty good, but not good enough. But there's a lot of different ways you can use this engine to win the game. I mean, you could be playing more Commit to Memories and just focus on generating a very large amount of mana for like a handful of big things. Like, I don't know, generate a large amount of mana and then cast like 3 Ulamogs in a row. I don't know.
I mean, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
I get to bounce it back?
You commit the Ulamog 2 cards into your library, cycle some more cards, and then cast the Ulamog again. I don't but I've seen versions of this deck playing Weirding Wood or Gift of Paradise as ways for your Vizier of Tumbling Sands to generate even more mana. So there's a lot of different ways you can take this shell. Really, the shell is just New Perspectives, Shadow of the Grave, Vizier of Tumbling Sands, and Shefet Monitor. Throw in whichever win condition you like, throw in whatever support cards you like, and, go to town with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty sweet. I hope something evolves from this. It may not, but it's still pretty sweet.
Yeah, it would be really nice to see a combo deck kind of take the place of Cat Combo. Although this one's more fragile than Cat Combo, which is one of the things I think might, it's going to keep this from, getting hit by the banhammer.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Now I know this makes this week's episode a little bit shorter than usual. I know normally we go up to an hour. We're only up to about 45 minutes here, but we got to go prepare for our next episode, talking about the implications of Felidar Guardian being banned. Oh my god, we even delayed this recording by a day. We're recording on Wednesday before the release of it, and this happens.
It's very exciting. Things can happen, but we'll see what's up.
As always, if you need to reach us between episodes, you can email us at wizardsbrewcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at WizBrewCast. Danny and I have our Twitters in the description, and we will see you guys next week.
All right, guys. Have fun.